Paralives just provided a pretty incredible showcase with items not seen in most live sim games, but there is a caveat. Many people have been speculating on our view regarding disabilities. As devs, we feel it is important for us to represent as many people as we can. Disabilities are everywhere around us, be it our friends, our families, or even us, be it visible or invisible. There are many things to consider regarding disabilities, especially with gameplay features. It requires a lot of design, for instance, how to tackle pathfinding with paras with mobility restrictions, research, even consulting, and programming. Now, while we won't be able to do more complex live mode/live mode featured to disabilities for the early access launch, we do think there's a way to at least represent our player base living with disabilities in the game. In Animal Crossing, people loved the wheelchair, although it was unusable. You could make your character sit in it and take pictures. We figured this was the least we could do. As such, the items we will be showing you all today will most likely not have gameplay uses for early access. Now, honestly, before we get into these items, I will just say this is a hot topic, and I definitely agree that if you're going to add any disabilities into the game and actual gameplay, you have to do it really well. Some people really want gameplay associated with disabilities in games, and other people say they play games to escape that. So honestly, I don't really know what the solution to this is, pathfinding aside, and even within a single disability, it can look very different for different people. Let me know in the comments below if you actually do want gameplay related disabilities or not. That said, it did say for early access, so it sounds like they're kind of leaving the window open to actually have some gameplay later on in the launch of Paralives. But no matter what your opinions are on disabilities representation in games, I do think there's some pretty awesome items here. The first one is actually a weighted lizard. You can see this right on the bed right here. I think that that is really interesting. Again, keep in mind this doesn't have any gameplay here. They said they are inspired by a para that likes pastel colors, likes space, and is autistic. And recreating the room, they decided to fill it with lots of comfort items. I'm noticing one of those, I think they're salt rock lamps. I don't really know what they're called. I believe actually my grandmother gave me one. Supposedly it's supposed to be helpful for anxiety issues. I don't know what the other supposed purposes are. I think that the colors work really well together in this room. It almost reminds me of the early 2000s when I was growing up. I'm pretty sure I see some items that were fairly popular back then. We also get to see a closer look on the actual desk here, and there's some other items I didn't notice. Stim toys and noise canceling headphones are lifesavers when you are getting overwhelmed. We also have a heating pouch to combat cold winter nights. Honestly, the attention to detail here I think is incredible. I definitely would not have expected this level of detail even before early access, and in my opinion, and I'm not an expert, everything looks really well designed and thoughtfully made too. If you're not so much of a fan of the pastel colors, just take a look at this room. This room is Geek-coded. Someone who'd live here would have a liking for delicious and dungeon, I'm assuming an allusion to Dungeons and Dragons. You get cool display of skate decks and LARP gear as well. You can notice the asthma pumps along with the blood glucose meter and the insulin pumps. I'm definitely not a builder by heart. I do sometimes decorate, but I think this is incredible for building up stories. Again, keep in mind this game isn't even yet in early access. I just think the catalog is going to be incredible. Now, this next space is imagined for someone who has autoimmune disease. There's actually an oxygen concentrator, and of course there is a wheelchair too, which we will get a closer look at. I had a keyboard growing up, and even though admittedly I never really learned how to play it, I sure had fun at playing random notes nonetheless. It looks like right here we have a donut plushie, and forgive me, I kind of cut it off, but I think this might be a giraffe plushie too. We get our full length mirror right here. We get kind of a modern looking rug. This is the closer look at that wheelchair. Again, I would love to see a para actually sitting in it. Hopefully it at least works like a chair. They did mention Animal Crossing where you could take pictures. That would be nice even if it's never going to be fully functional. Again, they are leaving it open for this maybe to be functional in the future, but definitely not a promise. In the corner here we see a walker or walking assistant. Yes, it would be very difficult to get this to work functionally, I would think, especially if all they have going on. We also see some crutches on the wall right here, very colorful ones. And speaking of color, remember you can recolor most of these items, and sometimes sometimes even multiple parts of the items. For example, if you see two colors, it's very plausible you might be able to recolor this part and recolor that part. Not only did they design these items, but they also thought about the spaces they occupy. As they say here, with someone with mobility restrictions, I created a bathroom large enough to easily fit a wheelchair with everything at arm's length while seated. I added some handles as support to get to the toilet and the shower. They are, however, of course, purely aesthetic and not functional. And what this shows to me is they care a lot about the work they are creating and thinking about the realistic way in which it works in real life. The way they are able to actually consider this, do this while taking on developing an entire game, I think is really admirable and makes me want this game to succeed even more. In this room, the item is of course the white cane, which is right here. This is a more dated look, as they say, for this room. They also have a marshmallow tip, it says, for anyone wondering, and there's even a book in Braille and a magnifier to see things better. Again, honestly, you just don't see this in many games, and I know it's just aesthetic for now, and maybe it will remain aesthetic. Still, it's definitely a step up for an indie game to think about all these different considerations. They also have some small hearing aids and a sign language book. There's also a text phone, which allows people to read what the other person on the other end is saying. Nowadays, it's all possible on cell phones, but folks struggling with technology still tend to use it. Another thing I absolutely love about these showcases is they always add some insight to their design and sometimes even educate us on different topics, whether that is bugs you encounter, different coding principles, or in this case, people with disabilities and how they navigate everyday life. This is just a close-up of a bookshelf and a lot of the clutter offered. Clutter here appears to be various types of lotions and body balms. We also have some medications and also a first aid kit. Here we just get to see an overview of the first level of this house. The exterior of the house actually had them testing different types of tools, and they wanted roofs at different heights and different levels. As a disclaimer, there is a little ramp at the front. It's something they did with their advanced tools, and it's not currently an object in the game. And even if it's not currently an object in game, I think that's a good testament to the building tools we're going to get. Overall, I don't have much to critique about this showcase. I think there's a lot of incredible work being done here. Overall, I don't know much else to say, but I love the work they're doing so far. And of course, I hope everything goes well with them as they head towards early access next year. I can't believe it's next year. Now, it could be at the end of the year, but it is still exciting. What were some of your favorite items or clutter? I personally even like the clutter in this kitchen right here. And of course, I care most about gameplay, but I think this is really important too. As always, please take care, and I'll see you in the next one.